this time the defense calls Robert Saunders to the stand.
Okay.
Mr. Saunders, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Robert Saunders.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the assistant manager at the Bass Pro Shop.
And do you know Josh Wallace?
I do. I know him from high school. I played football with his older brother.
When did you last see Josh Wallace?
I saw him on July 19th when I was working at the Bass Pro Shop. He came in asking for a job, but I wasn't able to help him out at that time, so I told him to meet me up later at the Three Monkeys bar.
And did you end up meeting up later?
We did.
What did you do during this meeting?
Well, he'd been looking for a job. I wasn't able to help him out at my store, but I was kind of helping him out just with the whole process. We were going over like interview tips. I'd help him get his paperwork together as well.
What kind of paperwork was this?
Just your general paperwork, applications, made sure he had a social security card in order, as well as just identification that any business is going to want when they're hiring someone.
Was Three Monkeys busy this night?
Yeah, it was a weekend night and it was late. I remember, yeah, there was a lot of people there. It was kind of busy.
Are you pretty familiar with Three Monkeys Bar and Grill?
Yeah, I go there on occasion, fairly often.
Do you know which street Three Monkeys is on?
Yeah, it's on Mid-Lake Avenue.
Now, let's go back to you and Josh. What else did y'all talk about that wasn't work-related?
Majority of the time, we weren't talking about, getting him a job. We were talking about our dogs. We both had German Shepherds, so we were just kind of sharing pictures and talking about our dogs and the silly stuff they do. His dog's name is Sam. It's pretty much all he talked about.
Was Josh with you the entire time?
Yeah, he was with me until the entire time I was there. When I left, he was still there.
And what time did you leave?
I left around closing time when they were calling for last call, so around 2 o'clock.
Did you leave with Josh?
No, I had left before him and he was still there.
Now, did Josh say or do anything to indicate that he was angry?
No, he didn't seem angry at all when I was with him at Three Monkeys. He mostly just seemed excited about getting a new job, and he saw his opportunity and he was ready to get a new job.
Now, why are you here today, Mr. Saunders?
I am here because you subpoenaed me to be here.
And we subpoenaed, and did you give a statement to the police department?
I did.
When did you give that statement?
I gave that in October of 2014.
Now, did you type that statement for the police officers?
No, I went into the police station and I wrote out a handwritten statement for them.
Did you give them any other information than what was on your handwritten statement?
No.
Now, why did you wait so long to go to the police?
Well, I had expected them to come to me at an earlier time. I'd seen from the papers about the incident, so I was expecting at any time they'd come knocking on my door. But as time passed, the police never came to me, and I wasn't trying to go to the police station myself, but eventually, after the proceedings started to get more in depth and it looked like someone needed to know where Josh actually was, I went into the police station and let him know that he was with me the night of the fire.
Now, do you know Megan Eganbrock?
I do.
And have you ever been to her home?
I have.
What, if anything, happened while you were at her home?
I'd only been there one time. I wasn't too good of friends with them, but it being a small town, I'd hung out with them every now and then. When I was there, I remember that Megan's ex-husband came over one time, and they'd gotten into a big argument, and he ended up hitting her in the face.
And how did Miss Eganbrock seem after that happened?
I don't know if she lost consciousness, but it seemed like she got knocked out for a second. So when she came up, she was shaken, frazzled.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Any cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Saunders, you testified that you've known the defendant for a while, correct?
That's right.
You've known the defendant since high school, correct?
Yeah.
And you were just speaking to the opposing counsel a minute ago about how you claimed that you were with the defendant at the Three Monkeys bar, correct?
That's correct.
You claimed that you were there talking about family stuff, correct?
Yeah, job stuff and, well, not really family stuff, more job stuff. I mean, I guess Sam's family, so yeah.
You spent time with the defendant there?
Three Monkeys?
Yes.
Yes.
And you were still there when the defendant left, correct?
No. I left. The defendant was still there.
So you can't tell us when the defendant was there, when the defendant left.
No, I cannot.
You can't tell us where the defendant went when he left.
I cannot.
After that night, you never saw the defendant again, correct?
That's right.
Then you heard about the defendant getting arrested, correct?
I did.
And you went immediately to the police station on July 21st.
Not
To
right
give your
after.
statement, correct?
No, not right after I heard.
You went July 22nd then, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Please allow my witness to finish answering the question.
Allow the witness to finish before you ask your next question.
Yes, Your Honor. You went on July 21st to give your statement, correct?
No, I went in October.
You went on October 25th, correct?
I think that was the date.
That's 3 months after the incident, correct?
That's right.
Your Honor, I'm showing opposing counsel was been marked as Exhibit 4 for identification. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 4. What is this document that I'm showing you?
This is my statement that I gave to the police officers when I went in.
Is this a full and accurate depiction of your statement?
Yes, it is.
And at the top of that statement, you gave your full name, correct?
I didn't fill out the top part there. That's not my handwriting. Oh, where it says my name is Robert Saunders, I wrote that.
Right below that, you gave your full address, correct?
Oh no, I didn't write down this information. I don't know where they got it from.
So you're saying this isn't your statement?
This is my statement, right here, where I handwrote it, but this top part was filled in by someone else.
So that's not your address?
Yeah, that was my address at the time.
And is that your driver's license number?
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I don't know my driver's license number.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't really see the relevance to this line of questioning.
Overruled.
Thank you. You gave a full and complete statement, correct? And you signed the bottom of that document?
Yes, I did.
You signed it as a true and accurate copy.
That's right.
True and accurate statement.
Yes.
And now you're claiming that that number is not your driver's license number, correct?
I mean, I don't know my driver's license off the top of my head.
Right next to the driver's license number, your social security number is there, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Would you please flip to the typed copy of your statement? To the front.
Okay. All right.
What is the number that's at the top?
My name's at the top.
What is the phone number that is listed on that document?
The phone number, it says 704-555-9034.
So on the day you gave your statement, you gave your address, correct?
They got it somehow. I don't remember giving it to them.
You gave your name?
I told them my name, yeah.
You gave them your driver's license number?
I guess so.
You gave them your social security number?
They have my social security number.
And that number at the top of that typed statement is your phone number, correct?
No, it's not.
You're claiming that here today?
Yeah, it's not my phone number.
Thank you. I have this document back. So on July 20th, 2014, you can't tell us when Joshua Wallace left the Three Monkey Bar, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Overruled.
I don't know the exact time when they left.
Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Saunders, did you type a statement?
I never typed a statement.
Did you give the police your phone number?
No.
And what time did you leave Three Monkeys Bar and Grill?
I left there around 2 o'clock.
Did Josh leave before you?
Nope.
So, you don't know, do you know when Josh left?
I just know that he was still at the bar when I left around 2.
Thank you, nothing further.
Witness may step down. Does the defense have any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Michael Pennington to the stand.
Good.
My name is Michael Pennington, the writing the book called
What's the diligence?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna die here on the stand, so
Oh, please don't.
tell my family I'm just doing something productive.
You just better not get anybody sick before this competition.
Yeah, I'm not worried, but I'm worried about myself. Like, I feel like my lungs about to come out of my body.
I'm just telling you what everybody else is worried about.
Yeah, I think one of y'all got me sick. Damn it.
You may proceed.
Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Michael A. Pennington.
Professor Pennington, I'm going to ask you a few questions just so the court and the jury can get to know you a little better. Is that okay?
Of course.
Professor, what do you do for a living?
I am a professor, and as well as I'm an author. I do work on cell phone forensics as well as I own my own firm.
How long have you been in this line of work?
I've been doing this for 29 years.
And what subjects do you teach on?
Computer information technology,
Professor, what is the focus of your personal studies?
cell phone forensics, information technology, computer forensics, and data recovery, things of that nature.
Have you written anything on these, on your personal studies?
Oh yeah, I've written many articles and 2 textbooks.
Have any of these been published?
Absolutely, I work towards publication.
Have you ever been an expert witness at trial before?
Oh yeah, over 160 cases, darling.
Do you get paid for your time and experience as an
course.
expert witness? Do you have any certificates or degrees?
I have a certificate in information technology as well as certified in digital forensics practitioner.
And have you attended any training throughout the years, just to keep up with current standards?
Oh yes, I have. I have recently most worked in advanced mobile forensics, computer enterprises. I worked with the DoD in a lot of their work.
Do you use these professional standards and methods in your research?
Oh yes, I do.
And did you use these methods in your evaluation of today's case?
Oh yes, I did, indeed.
Professor Pennington, have you reviewed anything in relation to today's case?
Yeah, I reviewed the records that was provided I found of Josh Wallace' cell phone, and as well as some network maps, things that are provided by the cell phone companies and that's required of them.
And has reviewing these items led you to form an informed opinion about today's case?
Oh, certainly.
Is your opinion based on all the materials that you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
And is your opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Professor Pennington is an expert in the field of network and cellular forensics.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, this expert will be qualified in the field of cell phone forensics.
Professor, why are you here today?
I was called and asked to investigate some cell phone records on behalf of the defendant.
And in searching the cell records of Josh Wallace, what did you find?
Well, what I did was I took the cell phone records and it told me which tower they're connected to. Then I used the information provided by the public records of the cell phone companies and then mapped them using the GPS on a Google map, and then it showed the direction from which the call was and the time it called.
And can you locate the general location of the call?
I can locate the direction from which the call from and the cell phone tower connected to, so
I'm showing the opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 5. May I approach?
Yes.
Professor, what am I showing you?
this is the cell phone information in regards to the cell phone that Joshua Wallace had.
And is this a fair and accurate have you ever seen this before?
Oh, yes, it was, I got the information from the cell phone company.
And is this a fair and accurate representation?
Certainly
Has it been materially altered in any way since you last saw it?
has not.
Professor, what did you use this for?
What this does is it tells me the particular phone that the cell phone records pertain to and the cell phone number that the phone is connected to.
Okay, and I am now showing what has been previously marked as Exhibit 6. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Professor, have you ever seen this before?
Yes, this is the cell phone records that are provided to me by track phone after I did a search.
Is this Josh Wallace's call information?
Yes, it is.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the call record?
Absolutely.
Has it been materially altered in any way since you last saw it?
Looks as clean as the day I got it.
How did you collect this information, Professor?
Well, what you do is you take the cell phone number and you put it in the program, and then it gives you the list of records based on the records that the cell phone company keeps.
Who did you request this information from?
It's from track phone, but the process is automated.
So was the report typed?
No, not by human.
And where is this information stored?
With track phones and server.
Your Honor, at this time, I motion for Defense Exhibits 5 and 6 entered into.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. The state objects that these are hearsay, and at this point would ask for permission to voir dire the witness on the admissibility of these documents.
Should I answer the hearsay objection first?
Sure, address hearsay first.
Yes, Your Honor. These documents, it has already been established by the witness that these have not been typed, and the entire purpose of hearsay is under the statement, under 803 or 801. It is to. This was not done by a human. The purpose of hearsay is to stop false statements from humans coming into the court for the hearsay rule. This has been established that this was not typed by any, except it is printed by a computer, and as such, it's not hearsay. It's written out.
Your Honor, and with that proffer, I still request permission to voir dire the witness on where these documents came from, who the declarant of these documents are, prior to the court ruling on the hearsay objection.
I think that should be part of the foundation for maybe 8036 or some variation thereof. So I'm going to sustain it at this time, but if you can lay the proper foundation for those documents, then they will come into evidence.
Excuse me?
I said if you can lay the proper foundation for the documents under an exception to hearsay,
Oh,
maybe
Yes,
as a
yes,
business,
Your Honor.
maybe as a business record. Then they will be
Your Honor,
admissible.
the foundation for this as a business record has already been laid. We have showed the chain of custody. We have shown, or I have asked, these records are kept by TrackPhone, as was stated by Professor Pennington. This is a regularly conducted business activity. They store this in their database like he stated. This is done with every single company. They do the exact same things as, which has been attested to. This is a regular practice of this activity. He obtained this through TrackPhone. And he's a qualified witness to attest to these.
Has he testified to all that, or is that you just telling me that?
I believe that he's testified to most of that, Your Honor.
I didn't hear a majority of it from him, but you can ask him those questions.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor.
And go through what these records are, where they come from, how he got them,
Absolutely.
What track phone does with them, is that normal? Go through all that information, let's get it out, and then we'll address whether it's significant or substantial under 8036.
Professor Pennington, how did you get these records again?
You make a request for track phone, you put in the phone number, and they keep the records in their database. And
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculation by the witness as to how these records are kept. No foundation has been laid that this witness ever worked for TracFone or has any knowledge, inner workings of the programs they use, or what happens after he makes his request. He can certainly testify as to making the request, but as to the procedures that this third-party company uses to get these records, he is inqualified to testify about.
He's an expert, so I'm gonna overrule that. He can certainly testify to his knowledge of how the industry works.
And is this a regularly conducted activity that these businesses do?
yeah, absolutely. You get any cell phone company, and they provide these records.
And, and these records were kept in that regularly conducted activity of business?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are these documents trustworthy?
Absolutely. I mean, it's completely, everything's automated. What it says it is, it is.
And how is this information collected?
Again, it's automated every time a cell phone makes a call, receives a call, text, vibrates from any kind of interaction via communication.
So where is this information stored?
With track phone in their database.
Your Honor, at this time, I believe the proper foundation has been laid. I motion for defense exhibits 5 and 6 to be entered into evidence again.
Any further objection on them?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, they will now come into evidence. 8036.
Permission to publish to the jury.
Yes.
We apologies.
In preparing for this case, how did you begin your research, Professor?
Well, what I did was I started with the cell phone records.
Objection, Your Honor. At this point, the witness has not been qualified as an expert in any field and therefore cannot testify as to any investigation or opinions that he develops.
I think he was qualified in the field of cell forensics
Yes.
about
it
10
was
minutes ago.
Network and cellular forensics, Your
Correct.
Honor.
So overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
In preparing for this case, how did you begin your research?
I started with the cell phone records and the unique identification related to the cell phone. And then what I did was I used that information to find the cell phone towers the cell phone connected to during its interaction with the other callers. And then I used that information to plot those cell phone towers provided by the cell phone companies on a map using GPS location.
And if I showed you this map, would you recognize it?
Certainly will.
I am showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 14. Excuse me 1 second, I apologize. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
What am I showing you?
These are the map of the cell phone tower locations using the GPS.
Is this fair and accurate representation?
Yes, they are.
Has it been materially altered in any way since the last time you saw it?
No, they're not.
Your Honor, at this time, motion for defense exhibit 14 to be entered into
Any
evidence.
objection to exhibit 14?
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, without objection, exhibit 14 will be entered into evidence.
Your Honor, motion to publish to the jury with
Yes.
a demonstrative, which is a blown up version of it, exhibit 14.
Yes.
Thank you. Professor Pennington, could you please explain how it works when cell phones ping off these towers?
Okay, so what a ping is a response between the cell phone tower and the tower itself. It indicates an event of communication. Now, each cell phone tower emits a signal in 360-degree area around it. Those 360-degree areas are broken up into three 120-degree wedges. Whenever a cell phone tower pings on a tower, it tells from which direction the cell phone pinged from and the tower in which it pinged from.
Would you be able to put this in simpler terms for me?
Sure. So the cell phone tower emits a signal in a big circle around it. That big circle is broken up into three pieces. Those three pieces indicate a direction, and that direction shows from which direction the cell phone was located in relation to the
Your
tower.
Honor, may I have Professor Pennington step down to further assist the jury in this demonstrative?
Yes.
Thank you. Professor, do you know what time the incident was reported to the police?
Looking at the information, I believe it was set 2:07 a.m.
And what time was the last call on Josh's phone made closest to the time of the incident?
It was around 1:58
And
a.m. Excuse me.
absolutely. And how long was Josh on the phone for?
For about 2 minutes.
So what time did he get off the phone?
Around 2 a.m.
Is the phone call that took place at 1:58 a.m. on July 20th on that map?
Well, it pinged off of this tower here, Carolina 764A at 1:58.
And again, how are these towers divided?
Again, they're divided in three 120-degree wedges in a 360-degree field.
So,
This would be alpha, this would be beta, and this would be gamma.
Professor, so all of these have circles around them?
That's correct.
Okay. And what happens when the lines intersect?
Well, when the lines intersect, there's a potential that it can ping off of any one of these towers. However, if it's closer to one tower, then it pings off of the one if it's outside the radius of another circle.
And what happens if it's in the middle of those two lines that you have intersecting right there?
Again, then it has the potential to ping off of these two towers. However, since it didn't ping off these two towers, it could not have been in that intersection.
So at 1:58 a.m., why did that call on Josh Wallace's phone ping off of this tower and not this one?
Because he was outside the radius of this tower, but he was within the radius of this. So he was in here.
Mr. Pennington, how far away is 764A Gamma from Ms. Eigenbrock's home?
It's about a little over 2,000 feet. So from the closest, excuse me, I apologize. About 4,000, over half a mile, almost a mile away.
Objection, Your Honor. At this point, the witness's testimony is substantially more prejudicial than probative. By standing up there and estimating and guessing at the feet and the length between these 2 points, all that can do is confuse and mislead the jury. Unless the witness is prepared to testify as an expert with certainty as to the distances between these 2 points, that is in violation of Rule 403. His guesses as to these distances, and therefore should not be allowed.
Your Honor, his nerves were just getting in the way. When he said it must have been, he meant it was. He was talking with all certainty.
I mean, he needs to say that, so.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
I
sustain that.
apologize. Should
If you
have
can-
coached the witness.
If you can lay the foundation, then he can certainly answer that question, so that's sustained at this time.
And we move to strike the estimates.
Yes.
Okay.
To a reasonable degree of professional certainty, how far away was Wallace at the time of the fire?
This distance from here to where he can possibly have been is 1.3 miles.
Thank you. And at the farthest point away at 764A Gamma, how far would he have been away?
The furthest point that he could have been was within the radius of the victim's home. That would have been equivalent of 1 3/4 of a mile.
Are there what, if any, direct routes are there to the Eigenbrught's house from these points?
There aren't any. It's a residential area around here, so you would have many roads. If you further get along, you actually get across the lakes.
Professor Pennington, according to the forensics and to a reasonable degree of professional certainty, where would Mr. Wallace have been at exactly 2 a.m. on July 20th, 2014?
Objection, Your Honor, improper opinion. The witness can surely testify as to where the defendant was at a certain time a call was made. But proper defense counsel just asked about a time that has no basis in these phone calls. It's a time that is not listed on these call records, and the witness testifying to where Josh Wallace was at this specific time, 2 o'clock in the morning, is not covered under his expert opinion, and is therefore an improper opinion is not allowed.
Your Honor, it has already been established through his testimony that a call started at 1:58 a.m. and lasted until 2 a.m. Therefore, it is under his expertise where he was at 2 a.m. because it would have been recorded in this data right here.
I'm going to overrule that. You can cross-examine on that
Yes, Your Honor.
based on the testimony he gave.
Professor Pennington, according to the forensics and to a reasonable degree of professional certainty, where would Josh have been at 2 a.m.?
He would have been roughly in this area right here.
Okay. And how far would Mr. Wallace have been from this?
Again, it's anywhere between 1.3 miles to 1.1 3/4 of a mile.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right.
I'd ask that that map be
Permission
left
to-
up, Your Honor.
Permission to preserve
Yes.
motion to preserve, excuse me.
Yes, it's preserved and it will stay up for use on cross-examination.
All right, Mr. Pennington, you agree with me that the technology you use in creating this map and doing your investigation, it's not GPS, is it?
No, it's not a cell phone call.
It can't trace where a phone is at a specific time, can it?
Not directly, no.
It can't tell us an address where a phone is at a specific time, can it?
No.
It can't give you latitude or longitude coordinates of where a phone is.
No, it cannot.
This technology uses a cell phone tower to estimate where a phone is that right?
That's correct.
By estimating, you can't tell us with certainty where that phone was when a call was made, is that correct?
Not with the accuracy of GPS, no.
So this technology is inherently less accurate than GPS would be, is that right?
I mean, yes, but it's not totally undoable.
This is the best we've got. Using this technology,
Yes,
are these estimates.
correct.
Now, I want to direct your attention to a specific call you were just talking about. Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Pennington, you would also agree with me that this technology tracks a phone's location when the phone call is made or received. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
It cannot track a phone after that call is made.
Not in the older phones, no.
In Josh Wallace's phone, it couldn't track where Josh Wallace and that phone went after a certain call was made.
That's correct.
And although you can see how long that call lasted, you can't tell us if the phone moved anywhere on this map.
Not unless there was a call done immediately afterwards, and then we can attempt to place it, but no.
Right now, Mr. Pennington, I want to direct you back to some testimony you just gave about a phone call at 1:58 in the morning. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I just did it.
You said that that phone call lasted for 2 minutes.
Correct.
That phone call, when it was made at 1:58, was located in the Gamma sector of 764A.
Yes.
But you can't tell us, after 1:58, where that phone went, can you?
No.
So when you just told the members of the jury that Josh Wallace's phone was located in this sector at 2 o'clock in the morning, you lied, didn't you?
No, I didn't. It's most likely used in that area because a human can only go so fast.
But when you told the members of the jury that his phone was in this area, you didn't say it most likely was. You said that it was in fact there at 2 o'clock. Is that right?
Well, I'm making the assumption that he can't move 300 miles an hour. So yes, I would say that. But you know, he may have some really fast rocket in his back pocket.
Thank you for that, Mr. Pennington. Now I want to get back to what you're actually an expert in. Not rockets, but cell phones.
Correct.
Now, you would agree with me that you said these towers are split up. There's a 360-degree circle.
Mm-hmm.
They're split up into 120-degree wedges. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, you would agree with me that accuracy is important in your reports. Is that right?
Accuracy of the wedges or what? Just in general.
Accuracy of your reports is important.
Absolutely, of course.
That it's important that you look at all of the data and create demonstratives like this to be as accurate as possible. Is that right?
Certainly.
You would agree with me that, let's talk about this wedge right here. This is not 120 degrees, is it?
Yeah.
It is not 120 degrees. Is that a yes to my question?
It is 120 degrees.
All right, Mr. Pennington, I want to move this a little bit closer so that we're getting the full picture. Is it your testimony today that this acute triangle is 120 degrees?
That's not an acute triangle.
Now, Mr. Pennington, you can step down if you'd like. This 461B, this triangle created by these two lines, this is not 120 degrees, is it?
I would say it is.
And you created this map yourself?
Yes, I did it.
You drew all these lines?
And they're 120 degrees.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Pennington. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, witness may step down. Does the defense have any further witnesses it wishes to call?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Oh,
All right,
my life just flashed in front of me.
defense has rested. Are there any motions to take up at this time, or is the state prepared to go into closing argument?
Your Honor, at this time, the defense renews their motion for judgment of acquittal. The prosecution has failed to submit sufficient evidence to which any reasonable jury could find guilt beyond reasonable doubt.
Anything on that? before
Yes,
we
Your Honor.
proceed?
Today, the prosecution had to prove that Josh Wallace intentionally and maliciously started the fire at the Eigenbrot home that led to the death of Tammy Eigenbrot. Now, it's already been stipulated today that Tammy Eigenbrot passed away as a result of the fire at that home. That means we had to prove to you that, or we had to prove to the members of the jury, or present enough evidence that they could draw a reasonable inference that he caused that fire, that he intentionally and maliciously, his actions led to that fire. Now, today we heard from 4 witnesses, 2 of which testified for the state about Josh Wallace's intent and his motive to set that fire. Specifically, the 3-year romantic relationship he had been in with Megan Eigenbrot that was cut short 3 weeks prior to the fire. We heard about the prolonged contact he had with Megan Eigenbrot, text messages, phone calls, threatening her on the day of the fire and in the days leading up to that fire. Finally, we heard from Detective Dillinger about finding Josh Wallace near the scene of the crime, smelling like gasoline, and the path that led from the spot where Josh Wallace was found to the Eigenbrot home. We heard about the items on that path, all that could have been used to create the weapon that led to the fire at the Eigenbrot home. At this point, we have presented enough evidence to create a genuine issue of fact that should be presented to the members of the jury.
Yeah, I'm going to deny that motion at this time, and we will proceed to closing arguments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, and I'd ask just briefly for permission to set up the courtroom prior to closing arguments.
Yes.
And Your Honor, the state would ask for permission to reserve all remaining time for rebuttal.
Yes.
All right, may it please the court?
Yes.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opportunity is the friend of desperation. When Megan Eigenbrot broke up with the defendant, a flame of despair was ignited in his heart. For 3 long weeks, that flame smoldered and grew. It fed on his hate. It fed on his pain. By the early morning of July 20th, that flame could no longer be controlled. The defendant looked for any opportunity to unleash it. Any opportunity to turn his desperation into action. You heard today that he found that opportunity. He found an opportunity to let that flame leap from his hand onto the Eigenbrot home. That flame consumed the Eigenbrot home. It stole young Tammy's life, and it shattered her mother's world. When the defendant found an opportunity to turn his desperation into his actions. Ladies and gentlemen, today the defendant has been charged with the crime of first-degree murder. Today we had to prove to you that the defendant intentionally and maliciously caused the Eigenbrot home to burn. And as a result of that, young Tammy Eigenbrot lost her life. Now, at the beginning of this trial, Ms. Hollingsworth came before you and described the burden of proof that lied with the state today, beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is a high burden. We know that, and as a prosecutor's office, we embrace that burden. We know the merits of our case, we know what the evidence would show you today, and we know what evidence we presented you with today. We knew that every element of the offense charge would be proven by the end of today's trial. That we would meet our burden of proof. And that today you would learn that Josh Wallace is guilty of the crime of first-degree murder. Because he let his desperation be turned into action. Actions that stole the life of a young girl. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you first heard about the defendant's desperation. We call it his motive. The reason why he wanted to harm Megan Eigenbrot. The reason why he was behind the Eigenbrot home in the early morning of July 20th. You heard that the defendant had been in a long-term relationship with Megan Eigenbrot. That Megan Eigenbrot had broken up with him. She had tossed him out of her home, that she had changed the locks, that she was done with him. But ladies and gentlemen, what you heard today is the defendant couldn't move on. He called, he texted, he did all he could to win her back. But what Miss Eigenbrot sat before you today and told you, that she wasn't going back. She was done with the defendant. It was time for him to move on. But he couldn't do that, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that he went to the Eigenbrot home on July 19th to pick up the last of his belongings. That when he went to that home, he again tried to rekindle his romance with Megan Eigenbrot. But as she had done time and time before, she shut him down. She told him no. But at that point, he didn't leave her home. He went and sat out in the backyard. He sat with his dog. He drank a few beers. He thought about the life that was gone. Looking at the home that he was kicked out of, but he very well may never set foot in again. And as he sat there in that backyard, the flame inside him grew. He felt the despair. He felt the pain. He felt the anger. That flame smoldered and became something that he could no longer control. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that Josh Wallace found an opportunity to unleash that flame in the early morning of July 20th. Now, Detective Dillinger told you about the three things the defendant needed to seize that opportunity, to turn his desperation into action. The three things: his hiding spot, his weapon, and his target. Now, first, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard about the defendant's hiding spot. A trail that runs through these woods from this roadway to where the Eigenbrock home is located. A trail that allowed the defendant to conceal his actions, to conceal his pain, to conceal his despair. It allowed him to sneak up behind the Eigenbrock home under the cover of darkness. This was his hiding spot, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that when Detective Dillinger found the defendant, he was right at the end of that trail. That his clothes were muddy, his shirt was torn, he had scratches all over his arms. What's most important is that he smelled like gasoline. Because when he emerged from this trail, ladies and gentlemen, he had just created his weapon. He had just found his target. Now, Detective Dillinger told you today about the defendant's weapon. A glass Coke bottle filled with gasoline and thrown at a target. He told you about all the items that the defendant used to create this weapon. The glass Coke bottles that were found along that pathway. The gasoline can that was underneath of the home that the defendant used to live in. A home that was right beside the Eigenbrocks. He told you that these glass bottles are filled with gasoline and then lit on fire. You heard about the lighter found in the defendant's backpack. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you heard today these items referred to as Molotov cocktails or poor man's hand grenades. They were exactly what the defendant chose to seize his opportunity. What he picked up along that path and used to destroy his target. And you heard today why he chose that target. You heard that he had once been a fixture in that home. And that as he stood behind that home on July 20th, it symbolized everything he would never have. A wife, a girlfriend, a daughter. As he stood there looking at that house, the despair inside him grew. That fire in his soul became uncontrollable. He filled those glass bottles and lit the flame. He unleashed it from within him and threw it at the Eigenbrock house. Those bottles went through the window and caused the nightmare that came true in the early morning of July 20th. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today the defense wants you to believe that Josh Wallace is not responsible for this crime. They want you to believe that someone else must have done this, that this tragedy does not lie with this man. In order to shift the blame, they called before you a cell phone, what they call a cell phone expert. But ladies and gentlemen, this man who prepared this diagram, who was presented to you as a man with 10, 15 years experience in creating diagrams such as this and tracking phones, he showed his true colors when he sat on that stand. This is going to go back with you, ladies and gentlemen, into the deliberation. A diagram just like this. I want you to look at these arrows. This is what the defense expert sat before you and said were 120-degree arcs. Now, I'm no geometry major or mathematician, but ladies and gentlemen, this is not 120 degrees. His failure to reconcile the facts, admit that this is not to scale, that there are errors with this. Just show what he is, a hired gun, somebody the defense sought out to sit before you and shift the blame. His failure and his inability to recognize the inherent unreliability of this diagram, of the technology used to make it, and his ability to track Joshua Wallace cast a shadow, just incredulity with this entire document, with his investigation. And ladies and gentlemen, the prosecutor's office today asks you to disregard his conclusions for what they really are. Guesses, estimates, unreliable. All he could tell you reliably is that Josh Wallace was somewhere on this map at the time the fire started. And that's true. He was somewhere on this map. He was right here where this green star is labeled victim's home. He was there, seizing his opportunity to turn desperation into action. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you further heard from an old friend of Joshua Wallace's. A man who the defense wanted you to sit here and believe recalled a 3-month-old conversation with the defendant at a bar. But what's more important than Robert Saunders' statement is what he couldn't tell you. He couldn't tell you why he waited so long to come forward. He couldn't tell you where the defendant went after he left the bar. He couldn't tell you what time the defendant got to the bar. We heard the inconsistencies with Josh Wallace's statement, saying he didn't know Robert Saunders very well. He couldn't even recall his last name. But then you hear today that Robert Saunders had been a lifelong friend, 20 years, a high school buddy of the defendant's. Inconsistencies, ladies and gentlemen, that cast a shadow of deceit on Mr. Saunders' entire statement. Inconsistencies that could not be explained when he came forward 3 months after the crime. Inconsistencies that could not be explained today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you were instructed, today we did not have to prove to you that Josh Wallace wanted to hurt Tammy Eigenbrod, that he went to the home that night with the intent of killing her. Instead, all we had to prove to you is that Josh Wallace intentionally burned down that house with malice in his heart, and that as a result of that fire, Tammy Eigenbrod lost her life. Today we showed you just that. You heard about the chaos in that house. That a mother and daughter went to sleep on a warm July night. They didn't know that their lives would forever be changed. That Megan Eigenbrod woke up when she heard a crash through her window. The quiet night was shattered. Flames leapt from the floor to the ceiling. Smoke filled the entire house. Megan Eigenbrod did what any mother would do. She ran immediately to her daughter's room. She grabbed that doorknob and tried to open the door, but she couldn't. Megan's door was locked. She pounded and she screamed and she did all she could to get her only daughter out of that house. As the smoke filled and the flames leapt around her, she beat and she pounded. But by that point it was too late. You heard that Tammy died of acute carbon monoxide poisoning. The smoke that caused her to pass away. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw today just what Tammy's room looked like when the door was finally opened. This was all that was left. This is what the defendant's actions did to this young girl's room. This is what the defendant's desperation caused him to do. This is why we're here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Wallace seized his opportunity on July 20th. But today you have the opportunity to hold him responsible for his actions. To tell him that no matter what the pain, what the anger, violent actions such as this are never acceptable. Because that night, the weapon he chose wasn't just a poor man's hand grenade. It was an angry man's hand grenade. It was a desperate man's hand grenade. It was a desperate man's chance for revenge. Find Josh Wallace guilty of the crime of first-degree murder. Thank you.
Vince?
Yes, sir. May I please the court?
Yes.
Members of the jury, we all know that you cannot be in two places at the same time. The prosecution just came before you and tried to sell you on the idea that Josh was at Miss Eyenbright's home on July 20th, but they failed to show you any actual evidence that links him to the scene. They failed to show you anything that puts Josh there at 2 a.m. In fact, the only evidence that has been presented to you today shows the exact opposite. The evidence showed that Josh was miles away at the Three Monkeys at the time of the incident. And members of the jury, the truth remains the same. You cannot be in two places at the same time. Josh was a hard-working young man. He had a dog named Sam that he loved and an honest job as a landscaper. But Josh didn't always want to be a landscaper. He didn't want to be a landscaper for the rest of his life. And that's why he walked all the way to Concord to the Bass Pro Shop today. Because he did have a flame. He had a flame for self-betterment. He wanted to improve his life. You heard from Robert Saunders that Josh came in looking for a job. Robert felt sorry for Josh and decided to meet up with him later at the Three Monkeys. Help him fill out some paperwork, conduct some mock interviews. Josh was absolutely thrilled. So he asked Miss Eichenbrock to have his social security card and his birth certificate put out for him so that he could seize that opportunity to get a better job, to get a better life. Eichenbrock, she was special to Josh. And no, that was not the first time he called or texted her that day. He was just trying to hold on to a relationship with a woman he loved. But he couldn't hold on, so he gave up. That's not what the prosecution wants you to think. They want you to believe that opportunity is the friend of desperation. That Josh was desperate. So he seized an opportunity. But that is simply not the case. When Josh came to the house, he never threatened Miss Eichenbrock. He never upset her enough to call the police, never threatened her daughter, never tried to go into the house, never forced her to see him at all. Instead, he just wanted to go and get his things, to end it, to get a new job and a fresh start on life. And of course, he wanted to see Sam, his German Shepherd. The fire started at 2 a.m. Miss Eichenbrock, asleep in her bed, heard the noise, woke up, put on her glasses, assessed the situation, and then went to wake her daughter up. She stayed there for a while in her daughter's dorm, till the smoke was too thick. And then, at 2:07, she finally called the police. Yes, there was a fire, but think about who wasn't there. Josh wasn't there. Because at the time of the fire, Josh was miles away, all the way across town, Three Monkeys. The prosecution is pulling at straws. They're trying to piece together something, anything that can point to Josh. But you can't piece together a puzzle when you're missing most of the pieces. And the biggest piece that they're missing is Josh. Members of the jury, the evidence, the pieces of the puzzle point only to Josh. Looking for a job that night, seizing an opportunity at the Three Monkeys. And Members of the jury, you can't be in two places at the same time. But the prosecution ignores, they choose to ignore this logic and blames the entire incident on Josh. Because they did this, they have to prove that Josh was the one who burned down Megan Eigenbrock's house. They have to prove that Josh was there at 2 a.m., started a fire, and that he was the one who burned down the house. And they must do this. They must prove this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. As my co-counsel has already told you, reason beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest burden in our entire judicial system. Beyond a reasonable doubt means that there are absolutely no other reasonable alternatives or explanations for what happened. This is what the prosecution must prove to you. They must prove there are no other reasonable alternatives, and they have not met this burden. We have no burden. We don't have to prove where Josh was that night. That burden is on the prosecution. What Josh does have is the presumption of innocence. The presumption of innocence means that you are innocent until you are proven guilty. Members of the jury, you have now listened to all the evidence. If you think that there's one reasonable alternative, if you think that it is reasonable based on all the evidence that Josh was at the Three Monkeys that night, at the time of the fire, you must acquit him. Because you can't be in two places at the same time. The prosecution attempted to prove their case through two witnesses. But ask yourself, what did these witnesses even prove? When the detective took the stand, we asked, what actual evidence is there that Josh was at Miss Eigenbrock's home at the time of the fire? You saw that there was none. There were no eyewitnesses that Josh was there. There was no DNA that placed him at the scene. No fingerprints linked Josh to the fire at all. Nothing on his person except a lighter, which he used to light his cigarettes. The detective did nothing to prove Josh was at the house at the time of the fire. In fact, the detective even admitted he did nothing to follow up on where Josh was. He admitted that even though he had every opportunity, he didn't go to the Three Monkeys. He didn't talk to the bartender. He didn't ask for any other witnesses. And even though he had the opportunity, he didn't look for security footage. He didn't even try to look for security footage in the surrounding area. He made a shoddy investigation that has no evidence that links Josh to the house at the time of the fire. He proved nothing. Miss Eigenbrock took the stand, and we wanted you to consider, what did she see that linked Josh to the scene? Nothing. He called and he texted her that day, but she was never worried. She never called anyone, even though she had every opportunity to do so. He didn't threaten her, he didn't cuss at her, he did nothing. Those text messages proved nothing. Miss Eigenbrock, she went to bed. When she woke up to a loud noise, she went to investigate, and she looked out her window, and as she did, she saw a flash of fire. Looking out her window, did she see Josh standing there? No, she didn't. She went to her daughter's room, and still, no Josh. And then, when she went outside to call the police, did she see Josh anywhere? No. Miss Eigenbrock never saw Josh that night. She saw nothing. Members of the jury, they proved nothing to you. We could have stopped right there, but we called two witnesses to show you exactly what the prosecution ignored. The prosecution wants to believe that Robert Saunders and Mr. Wallace were old friends. They were buddies. They had 20 plus years together. That is simply not the case. Mr. Saunders had to be forced here. He had to be subpoenaed to get here. And when he took the stand, he told you exactly where Josh was. He told you Josh could not have been at Miss Eigenbrock's house because Josh was at the Three Monkeys till 2 a.m. miles away. He told you that Josh was trying to move on, trying to get a better job and a fresh start on life. He told you of Sam and his dog, who they talked about that night, and the mock interviews that they did. Robert showed you that at 2 a.m. at the time of the fire, Josh miles away. And then we called Professor Pennington, who explained that there is concrete evidence that what Robert Saunders told you was true. Professor Pennington explained that by using the cell phone call history, you were able to identify the location of a phone using cell towers. The cell towers are divided into 3 parts, and this call is made or received, call pings off the closest tower. By using that information, Professor Pennington was able to determine that at 2 a.m. on July 20th, 2014, Josh was closest to 764 Gamma, which pushed Josh in the vicinity of the 3 monkeys and miles away from Miss Ivanbrot's house. He showed you that at 2 a.m., Josh wasn't even near Miss Ivanbrot's house. The prosecution chose to ignore this, and this cannot be ignored. They have to prove to you where Josh was, and if there's a reasonable possibility that Josh was not at Miss Ivanbrot's house at 2 a.m., Josh is innocent. We ask that you do the only thing that the lack of evidence allows and find Josh not guilty. Because, members of the jury, you simply cannot be in 2 places at the same time. Thank you.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. All right, may I proceed?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ms. Smith wants you to believe that a person can't be in 2 places at once. That a person like Josh Wallace is not guilty because they can't be in 2 places at once. But what you heard today is that the defendant was in the one place that mattered on July 20th. He was standing in the backyard of 918 Spring Street, and this is what he saw. He saw a home engulfed in flames because of his actions. Find Josh Wallace guilty of first-degree murder. Thank you.